I am Barbara Rassi. Ich heiße Barbara Rassi. Some of you will already pick up on the fact that when I speak English, I have an accent, and the real language buffs among you will probably realize that it is a German, or as I like to say, Germanic accent. I'm not from Germany. I'm actually from Austria. I am from Vienna. I was born in Vienna. I quite identify with being from Vienna, maybe not always with being Austrian. This is something, we could still look into. And I thought I'd take this opportunity today to talk about what makes me tick as a language tutor. So, studying languages, and I'm focusing now very clearly on studying German here at Royal Holloway, or at other places too, but here at Royal Holloway, very often A-level students or more mature students starting to study a little bit later might associate it with studying German that is being spoken in Germany, and that is perfectly okay. The German language, however, is a language that is obviously not only spoken in Germany, it is spoken also in Austria, it is spoken in Switzerland, it is spoken as a minority language in Belgium, it is spoken in Eastern European countries like Hungary or Romania, for instance, to name just a few. And in this respect, I, as a language tutor, feel quite strongly about the concept of variations of German. Traditionally, one would, maybe several years ago, several decades ago, one would have used the concept of so-called High German, and if you were super traditional, you would have even placed that geographically and would say, well, the proper German, the proper High German or Standard German is being spoken in the north of Germany, and if you wanted to be super precise, gründlich, you would probably say, well, it's spoken around the area of Hanover. From my point of view, as a language tutor, this is a slightly outdated concept. I adhere to the concept of variations of German, so there is what I would refer to as Standard German, but there are actually several types of Standard German. So there is obviously your well-known German, as I refer to it, but there is also a Standard German that can be called Austrian German or Austrian Standard German. There is also a Swiss Standard German. So I'm focusing on these three countries for the time being. There is even a lovely analogy. So sometimes when you learn German, you'll come across the symbol of a roof. Roof in German is Dach, and Dach stands for D. The first letter, D for Deutschland, A, the international abbreviation for Austria, Österreich, and CH, international abbreviation for Switzerland. So this concept of Dach, translated into English roof, also focuses on there is Standard German, but there is Standard German that is a German Standard German, Austrian Standard German, and Swiss Standard German. Citizens of all three countries understand each other, obviously, because when they all speak Standard German, they do understand each other. There are certain variations, let's say, occasionally grammar-wise, occasionally word-wise, that something might be used only in Austria, something might be used only in Switzerland or only in Germany. But this Standard German is the uniting factor, language-wise, for these three countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And obviously, as the language buffs will know, apart from Standard German or a standard language, there is always something that is called in German Umgangssprache, your everyday language. So that might be the language you use when you go about your everyday business. It might not be clearly marked geographically, it might be supra-regional, but it might still sort of apply to an area within, let's say, Germany, Switzerland, or Austria. And then So, for example, when I teach, I obviously use standard German for teaching. However, when I speak to my family, friends who live in Austria, I would use a slightly more relaxed form of German, something that I relate to as Umgangssprache, everyday language. And language is plentiful, language is absolutely beautiful in its different variations. The variations do not just refer to the standard of German, they also refer to, let's say, expressions in dialect. So there are loads of dialects, not only in Austria. People often assume that only citizens of Austria speak dialects. That's untrue. They do that in Switzerland, and believe it or not, they do that in Germany as well. And obviously, dialect is something very specific. Regionally, it can relate to a very small region, and it can also relate to class, for instance. It can even relate to professions. Yeah? So this is something I bear in mind when I teach German. I want to bring across that there is not just one standard German, there are variations of standard German, and I want to bring across also that there are different words people might use. For instance, depending on the country they live in, the German-speaking country they live in. I don't know, for instance, if you talk about beans, as in Bohnen or Fisolen, Fisolen might be the Austrian version, Bohnen, the German version, but then you have to differentiate within Austria as well. So it gets too complicated, and before I confuse everyone, don't believe that there's only one type of German out there. If you want to study German, if you want to learn German, reach out, go beyond Germany, I would say that as an Austrian, wouldn't I? But it is going into Austria, into Switzerland, for instance.